Howdy, Facebook Live. Sean Yesner here with Andrew Gordon from Reliable Claims Adjusting, and we're going to be recording an episode of the Crushing Debt podcast. And so I thought I'd give you a behind-the-scenes look at my interview with Andrew. So say hello to Facebook Live, Andrew.
Hi, Facebook Live.
So, guys, this is not my super secret sexy voice. This is a present from my kids and sinuses because it's hot to cold to hot to cold. So I'll probably be drinking water from time to time, which is not something I would normally do during a recording episode, but need to keep the pipes wet so that I can get through it. So if you're ready, let's get started. So like I said, I'll click start, I'll give it a second or two, and then we'll launch into it.
Great.
Okay, you ready? So welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I do want to make a little bit of a disclaimer right up front here is that this is not my super secret sexy voice. This is me trying to power through an interview with the tail end of laryngitis. So apologize to the listeners for the quality of my voice, but I've got some water here. I'll be taking sips as I interview my guest. So I'm very happy to have Andrew Gordon on the podcast. Andrew is with Reliable Claims Adjusting. So welcome, Andrew.
Thank you, Sean. It's exciting for me to be here. Thanks for having me on your podcast.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So I asked Andrew to be on. Andrew is a public adjuster. And so I think one of the first questions a lot of people are going to say is, well, what does a public adjuster do? So what is it that I know, but tell them, what is it that you do?
I hope you know what.
I know, yeah. So
most people, that is the first question. What is a public adjuster? There are a few different kinds of adjusters. Insurance adjusters work for insurance companies. Independent adjusters work for multiple insurance companies. As a public adjuster, what I do is represent homeowners and businesses that have property damage, and I represent them. I'm their advocate in the claims process to make sure that they get a fair award so they can repair the property the way it was before the damage.
So you work for the homeowner.
I work directly for the homeowner.
Okay, so what is the difference between what you do and an insurance adjuster or an independent insurance adjuster?
So either one of those two will be representing the insurance company during a claim.
Okay.
The public adjuster is the only kind that can represent the homeowner during the claim.
So the insurance adjuster would be representing Progressive or Allstate or whomever.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
And then the independent, what's the difference between an insurance adjuster and an independent insurance adjuster?
Well, an independent is allowed to work for multiple carriers, multiple insurance companies. So they don't just work for one, they go around working for many. The problem with that is they're kind of turning and burning some of these claims, and they don't get full attention to all the details.
Right. Okay. And so and their job is to minimize the claim to the insurance company.
It's a business.
Yeah.
It's a business, so they're not supposed to go and pay it out completely fair. Many companies do. Unfortunately, a lot don't.
Well, I mean, insurance companies are in the business of making money, like any company would properly do. So I think the next biggest question that people will ask then is, if you work for the homeowner, how the heck do you get paid?
That's a great question. I get that a lot. And we work on a contingency. So the homeowner pays us, but it is only upon the amount, a percentage of the amount that we get from the insurance company. So if we take over on a claim as an example, and you've recovered X amount, we get a percentage of anything that we can get above and beyond that. When we work on a claim from the very beginning, which is possible, we get a percentage of that recovery.
Which I guess leads me to my next question, maybe. Do you have a few tips? What should somebody do either before they have a loss to prevent any further damage, or what should they do after a loss maybe? What are some steps people should take before or after they've incurred a loss?
Those are great questions. And what I find is that sometimes the claims process gets complicated if a policyholder, a homeowner, does not follow the script with what they have to do during a claim, or even before. As an example, I represented a fire claim recently, and the woman had a real difficult time of remembering all of the contents, of documenting everything that was burned. So what would have been extremely helpful is if she would have went around with her phone and took a little video of everything. Just walked around the house. That'll work for all claims where there's content damage or even property damage. Getting a glimpse of what it looked like beforehand is really crucial. You can take pictures, videos are helpful. And then also, one thing that you can do, we've seen a lot of mistakes happen when people are not noticing damage when they first come home. So a water stain may come from your roof and it goes into the kitchen, but you don't really look up all the time, so you don't notice it until it turned into mold or you start smelling something. So a really great idea would be monthly, walk around the house, look for cracks, look for water damage, see if things are getting worse, if they're the same, and just document it, keep records of it.
Right, and so what I've heard is that the reason you want to do it with a video camera is because the video camera can time and date stamp it.
Absolutely.
Or maybe a camera that, and I know most smartphones today, most cameras today do have the ability to time and date stamp when the picture was taken, right?
Absolutely.
Or they can just take a newspaper and take a picture with the newspaper that shows the date on it or something like that, right?
Yeah, I've heard technology now, it's automatically in there.
Well, yeah, we're recording this on Facebook Live as we're recording this as well. So yeah, technology's probably caught up to the homeowners here. So what about you and I were talking before we started recording. Do you have any examples of either some interesting cases or maybe even some strange or weird cases? Give us some examples of some claims
Sure.
that you've handled.
I've started off working on hurricane claims and turned into sinkholes. And since then, I have seen some interesting and probably about 15 or 20 different kinds of losses. Some of the more interesting ones were, as an example, I worked on a fire claim recently in Riverview. Garage fire. Really bad. They had just moved in the house. They'd been there for a month. And they say on average a homeowner files a claim one every 10 years. These people moved in a month and had a garage fire, not to their fault. Most of their contents were in that garage. They hadn't unpacked, so they lost that. And they reported the claim. They spent 2 months in a hotel where the carrier just paid the hotel bill, but didn't pay the claim out. They were given a check for $3,500 and said, "Here, go fix your garage." They had an estimator go out and said, "I can't touch this for less than 15 grand." They got us involved, and it took about another 2 months to resolve it, and we ended up getting them 22 grand to rebuild the garage, so they had enough after that. But it took 4 months.
Right.
And it cost the carrier 3 months of a hotel. They paid a mitigation company 18 grand. I mean, their costs were almost as much or more than what they paid. I had another claim that this was really interesting. We filed the claim as a sinkhole because this woman had some really bad stress cracks in her property. There's cracks all over the inside of her house. Worst I've ever seen. And we filed the claim. They did some testing. They said there was no sinkhole, but you know what they found? They found rodents had dug under her property and caused a large enough cavity or hole to cause the property to actually have damage.
So Facebook Live, we paused the recording of the podcast because they're also doing the lawn in the neighborhood, and so I don't know that I want the lawnmowers to pick up the sound. So I'm going to wait for some of those lawnmower sounds to die down, and then we'll jump back in. So you remember where you are. I'll click pause on the recording. So we'll unclick the pause. You can start talking again, and then my fantastic sound guy will engineer it so that it's relatively smooth. Let me see where they are. I don't see him. So, okay, so what is this? Take two? I guess not take two, but we'll just continue going. So,
no problem.
Are you ready? I'm going to unclick pause, and then you just keep going. Can you see it?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, ready?
So what they discovered that it was hidden rodent damage. Most interesting case I've ever had, where the carrier's engineers said that they're not going to cover the sinkhole loss because rodents were the cause of the loss. I always think of that farmer's commercial with the gopher stealing the ring.
Yeah.
Thinking about that. So it was interesting. I never had a gopher loss, but I've had some real interesting cases.
Wow, What about some success stories? I know you told us the one lady that they offered 3,500, you were able to get her 22,000. Any other or any better?
I have better. I have two. I'll tell you quick. I have one that I'm the most proud of. It took me 2 emails. It only netted my company $150, but I was most happy with this.
Wow.
There was a gentleman recently blind, and he had wind damage to his roof. His sister helped him spot some of the damage. They called it claim. And they had an adjuster go. I won't mention the insurance company, but an adjuster went out. They called him back and said, we've decided it's about $3,500 of cash to you for the claim, and he had a hurricane deductible, so it would have been about $6,000 or so worth of damage, and the estimates he got kind of coincided with that, so he agreed. They had him sign a release so he wouldn't go back, and he did. He had it notarized. A month goes by after turning it in, and he doesn't receive a check. Now, he was promised $3,400. He called up the adjuster, and they said, well, there was something wrong, a clerical error, so we're looking into this, we'll get back to you. And the adjuster calls him back 2 days later and says, the clerical error was that you actually should only be getting a check for $1,200, and you don't have to sign any other releases, but we're going to send you that $1,200. And he said, wait a second. What do you mean? We agreed to $3,400.
Right.
And he said, well, there's a clerical error. I'm sorry, I can't do anything about it. He looked, now, at this point, homeowner didn't know what to do. So he thought about an attorney. He looked up online, and he found my company. And that's the biggest problem for me is letting people know I'm out there. I work with attorneys, and attorneys are fantastic if we have to litigate. But I'm a good first option to that effect. And he found me, and I looked at his case. It was obvious to me when I looked at his case what happened was that the adjuster forgot to apply the deductible and sent him a release for the full estimate. Just didn't apply a deductible at all. Just forgot about it. Went back to it. He said, we didn't apply that, so you're only getting this amount. But they already had a release signed.
Right.
And a release signed and notarized. So I emailed the adjuster and said, you have this release. You need to send a supplemental payment. And he replied to me with an email saying, well, there was a clerical error. And then my last email was, I know what your clerical error was. You forgot to apply the deductible. Please send a check out immediately.
Your clerical error.
Right. 2 days later, I get a phone call. He says, we just sent the payment out.
Oh, good.
So that was, and it was,
right.
It felt great.
Yeah.
It felt great to do that. I have the largest increase I've ever got. I don't know if you can constitute this because it's from 0 to 180,000. But I worked on a denied claim in New Jersey. It was actually when Hurricane Sandy hit.
Okay.
And these homeowners filed the claim and were denied. I took the claim over. I did the inspection. I looked at it. I said there was no reason why this should be denied. And I helped them to recover their full policy limits.
Nice.
So that one felt very good as well.
I think 0 to 180. I think I'll classify that as a win for you. Yeah.
Much
0 to 180 works.
Not our usual number, but
No, but I think it works just the same. So I really appreciate you being on the podcast. We are getting towards the end of our time, but I did want to give you an opportunity. If somebody wants to get a hold of you, what is the best way for them to do that?
Thank you. I appreciate that. You can call me directly. I'm the owner of the company, so I will handle all calls. My number is area code 813-786-5771, or you can go to my website, which is reliableclaimsadjusting.com.
Great, and I'll post both of those in the notes that come out with the podcast, and also those of you who are listening, go to the Yesner Law Facebook page, or even my personal Facebook page, and we've got this going on Facebook Live, so you can also get the information here through video through Facebook Live. So I really, really appreciate you being on the podcast this week, Andrew. Thank you for coming in, and thank you for your time. And for the other listeners, we really appreciate you tuning in week after week. The podcast numbers are growing. I am really excited about it. The more the numbers grow, the more content that I can provide to all of my listeners, both listening to the podcast, also on Facebook Live. And so I really appreciate you tuning into this week's episode, and we will look to talk to you in next week's episode of the Crushing Debt Podcast. Cool. So we are done. We're still on Facebook Live. So
Facebook Live.
we still need to thank them for tuning in. We've had people popping in and out as we've been recording, although I did see someone say that they can't hear us. So we'll work on the volume issues. And but we appreciate you listening to our backstage recording of the podcast, and we'll see you guys next time as well.